All right, man. So let's move on to the NFL. So we are now in week 2 or just past week 2. And I always notice every single season when we were doing PF and even before that, that overreactions and underreactions are really the theme of this period of time in the NFL. Because I think what ends up happening is if you're a fan of a team and your team is either 2-0 or 0-2, you have some kind of a reaction. A lot of times the 2-0 teams, they feel overconfident, and the 0-2 teams are kind of underselling just how bad things could get from here on out. So I'm not going to do what you guys do. We're not going to go over every game, but I want to go over the 0-2 teams and the 2-0 teams and kind of break down whether they're in trouble or whether they're real. Does that sound like it's a good idea to you?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, man. So I want to start with a team that you have been high on for the last couple of years, and I think in my mind is one of the most worrisome 0-2 teams, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. So obviously coming off a Super Bowl berth 2 years ago, an AFC Championship berth last year, where they started 0-2 last year. They're now 0-2 again, having lost a crucial division game. But this season, to me, feels a lot different than last because I think Joe Burrow is probably 50% at best. And in the NFL, if your star quarterback is out, your team is out. So I'm definitely very worried about the Bengals and think that if Joe Burrow was out even for 3 weeks, they may find themselves 1-4, and that to me is too deep of a hole to dig yourself out of to even think about making the playoffs.
I make that sentiment too. We talked about this on PF yesterday or last night. So I'm not, I'm obviously not a doctor, but I'm a trainer. And one of the things about a calf injury or calf strain, depending on what level of injury that he sustained, I personally think that he got to rush back a little bit too soon. And it's still aggravating him. It's still going to bother him. But the precursor to what could happen is what happened to Aaron Rodgers. So uh, it's week 2, week 3 coming up. Do you sit him for a game or two, or do you trot him out there and hope that he works through it? They are worrisome at 0-2, and if they go the next 3 games without wins, then this team is in real trouble. Real trouble.
I don't think it's an overreaction to say that this team is in trouble right now because I think the injury to the position that they have an injury to is crucial. I mean, this is not like last year where they had Jamar Chase was out for a couple games. Joe Burrow was lighting things up. This is not having your guy back there. And I don't even know who the Bengals backup is. But if Joe Burrow has to be out for any extended period of time, they cannot survive. That tells you something if you have no idea who the backup is, which means they are royally screwed. And I think that this 0-2 is not really an overreaction to say that I think that they're going to miss the playoffs this year.
Man, that'll be tough because I got them as as going to the big dance.
15 they're one of my teams like that. Yeah, they're not looking too
all the
good
way.
right now.
So
yeah.
we shall see.
We shall see.
Yeah.
So the other team that I think is
Not
very
at all.
worrisome for a different reason is the Los Angeles Chargers. And I don't know what it is about this team. I've never trusted them. I have heard people make chargering a verb, and they're sitting now as one of the most offensively impressive teams in the league, and they're somehow 0-2, having lost to the Titans this past week. And I'm looking at this and thinking, Brandon Staley continues to have a job. He has not produced in any way, has a catastrophic playoff loss on his resume, and he's wasting Justin Herbert. And I don't know if this team can get it together because if they lost 2 games right off the bat, are they ever going to figure it out? And as the season goes along, you have little nicks and little bumps to all these guys, and guys get banged up. So I'm a little worried about them, but I think they have a little bit more of a shot because Herbert is so good, and he may be able to overcome this.
I kind of see it a little different. But I also see the same thing that you guys see about this franchise because it's not just this year or this team. It's always every year with the Chargers. Like they're always right in the hunt and then they're not. For some reason, this is a weird thing. I think Scott said sacrifice a goat or something, which is crazy. But Eckler's already hurt, or banged up or chipped up or whatever. And then I think Dave gave us the stat last night that they're one of 2 teams that are that have scored like 50 points or something like that, and they're 0-2.
Yeah,
like the math doesn't match. It doesn't match up at all. Like what we're watching and what's on paper, and I'm like, so who is this team? What's the identity of this team? Because you're right, Herbert is not being utilized. And hopefully that they'll take the Corvette out of the garage and let them rip.
Think about this with the Chargers for a second. the Packers had 2 back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks, won 2 Super Bowls out of it. Probably less than they should have, but they still won 2 Super Bowls out of it. The Chargers are going to have Phillip Rivers, immediately followed up by Justin Herbert, who that could end up being 2 back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and they might not win a darn thing. And that's just, it's crazy. And I don't even know how to describe that as far as the franchise. Like, how do you describe to somebody who doesn't know a thing about football why this is happening? I think it's just one of those weird sort of gut feelings, like they just don't have it as an organization. And it's weird because they should be a lot better.
Uh,
I don't get it.
You're 100% right. And I remember you always preface this by saying that they got rid of Shoddy with a with a winning record.
14-2.
They fired a coach with a winning record. Like that's how do you do that? How do you seriously do that?
We're going to get to the Bears in a minute, but I saw a stat today that since they fired Lovie Smith, who was 10-6 in his last season, I don't think they've won 10 games since. So it just is crazy to me when these guys get fired.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think the Chargers actually are in trouble, and I think that they almost need an overhaul. It's like, hey, we've got the piece that is the hardest to get. We've got Herbert. We've got this guy's got a cannon. Like, he should be slinging dimes out there. And if he is under any other guy, I
Yeah.
feel like they're winning football games. Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy to me to think about wasting a talent like
Absolutely.
this. Brandon Staley needs to go back and be a coordinator somewhere. He is not head coach material. Hot take. I think he's overrated, and I think that the Chargers are going to be moving on from him. All right, so another team that is sort of laugh out loud funny at 0-2 is the Broncos, because I have been on the train that Russell Wilson has been washed for quite a while, and I didn't think bringing in Sean Payton was going to help. And man, that loss to the Commanders was so great for so many reasons, because it looks like they might be able to sneak a victory in there, and they can't get the 2-point conversion. But Russ kind of looks lost. The team doesn't have any discipline. I don't know. I just think that they might be done in terms of Russ. And then what do they do after that? Because, again, it's the hardest position to find the guy in, and Russ isn't exactly ancient.
Well, there's a good quarterback class coming out next year. You might have to hinge your hat on that if they're picking high. The other thing about Russ is his numbers actually look pretty good. They look better than last year's numbers. I mean, they're not eye popping, but they're better. I just think, yeah, I think his time has come, unfortunately, and it's kind of like, what do you do after that? You're 100% right. What do you do but draft another quarterback? And hopefully it pans out. But I don't think Peyton is hanging his hat on Russ being his guy for the next couple of years.
So I don't
Ain't
get the
gonna
sense
happen.
that actually Peyton thinks Russ is his guy. Like, when they brought him in there, I don't get that sense at all. Like, the reports that we're hearing about
Yeah.
how he kind of talked to him
No,
and
it's
treated
not
him.
his guy.
No. And that's strange, though, because
Yeah.
you take such a risk. They had to pay and draft capital to get Sean Payton because he was still technically employed by the New Orleans Saints. And so here comes this guy in who's got a pedigree. I personally believe that Sean Payton is massively overrated for winning that one Super Bowl. And
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
one of the things that showed in this game was that onside kick that he tried to get cute to start the season, right? Is that what he did? I think it was to start the season, and it didn't work because his guys didn't let it go 10 yards. And I'm like, see, this is what I'm talking about, is if that happens in the Super Bowl, they do not win that one Super Bowl, and we're not talking about Sean Payton here now. And I'm very, very firm on this take that Sean Payton got way too much credit for winning that one Super Bowl. He has the same amount of Super Bowls as Mike McCarthy.
And to Russ's credit, I'm not big on disrespect, but if I'm Russ, I'm like, okay, I get all the antics. You don't want me to have my own locker room. You don't want me to have my own staff coming in. I get that, but who you talking to? I got one Super Bowl ring and another appearance, and I was on a good team. So talk to someone else that rough, but I get it, coach. But you're right. I don't think it's his guy, and he's just gonna just burn this out and then get the guy that he really wants to coach.
Yeah, but I think the Broncos might be in trouble because they have 2 losses now. One of them is to the Raiders, who is in their division. The other one's to an NFC opponent, so that's fine. But they haven't played the Chiefs twice. They haven't played the Chargers twice. Now, I know we both said that the Chargers may not make the playoffs, but I think that they're more talented and could actually win games down the stretch. And so the Broncos now find themselves in this 0-2 hole. And what's significant about 0-2 is I think historically like 70% or 75% of the teams that start 0-2 don't make the playoffs. So it's not good looking for them. And I honestly think that because Russ is not their guy, even if his numbers look okay on paper, I think that all the other metrics and just the eye test tell me that this team is not destined for a long playoff run.
Correct. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
All right, so a team that makes me sad, but we have to talk about them, is the New England Patriots. Now, I'm not surprised that they're 0-2 because they got the Eagles and the Dolphins, two of the best teams in the NFL. I think that it's not really debatable at this point in the season. But I know that you're not a big Mac Jones guy, and I know a lot of people are saying that he's lost out there, but I think that he's playing a lot better under competent management. Last year, it's almost like when I talked about Sam Darnold, how
Yes.
if Sam Darnold got drafted into the league under a more competent coach, would be easy to get because Adam Gase was his coach. I don't think that he is where he is today. So Mac Jones almost regressed because of such terrible decision making about who was going to be over the offense last year. And so this is almost like a rookie year for him in a lot of ways because it's a new offensive scheme. They're doing new things and they don't have any weapons. So I think ultimately the Patriots are going to be a bad football team this year, which I think is good for them in the long run because if they get a top 10 pick through every round in the draft, that actually sets them up to be able to team build over the course of the draft. But I think that Mac Jones is better than people are giving him credit for. And I think over the course of the season, having worked with Bill O'Brien, I think it's going to look better even if the record isn't better. How do you feel about that?
I agree with the first part of it that we shouldn't judge him based on last year's debacle of who's calling plays and him trying to figure out two significant different styles of coaching on center. You guys made I'm sorry, Tua and Hurts look ordinary, and that's a testament to the coaching. All right, Tua's coming off this really big, crazy game, but again, the Dolphins are beatable. I mean, they look normal, like like that. It's a very hard offense to defend against, but you guys, the coaching matters. It's like we're both boxing fans. We talk about sometimes the technicalities of fights. They showed, and I think they're going to beat us when we roll in there. I think they're going to beat us, and not because Zach's awful. I think it's just that the coaching is going to be superior. The coaching always is going to until Belichick is out of that organization. There's always a puncher's chance. There's a puncher's chance. So you guys have a different, meaning the New England fandom has a different way of looking at a losing season. But again, if you guys win 8, 9 games with what's going on, with kind of like a rebuild almost,
It is.
kudos,
Oh, it's 100% a
kudos.
rebuild because this is, again, like almost resetting the clock. Like Mac Jones is out there and he looks the same way he did in his rookie year. Last year, he looked frustrated and he just didn't have the kind of demeanor that you want from your starting quarterback. But he's out there running the plays. And I feel like he's running the plays in a way that he knows that he's throwing to a bunch of, as Dave would say again, dust balls because he's throwing to a bunch of nobodies out there. But they still manage to stay in the game somehow and that defense is top tier. I mean, that defense may be top 5 in the NFL, the way that it is currently built,
Yes,
which
coaching,
is again a
coaching.
testament to, yes, coaching. And also, Bill Belichick knows how to build defense. And over the course of the last few years, they've gotten these pieces together. They draft Christian Gonzalez. That's going to be a defense that, if they can
Yeah.
get the offense to be just serviceable, that could be a Super Bowl winning defense with almost a Trent Dilfer like offense, if you put it that way. But if they ever get their act together and get some real offensive weapons, either through the draft or free agency, that could be a dangerous team. It's just not going to happen this year. And I'm okay with
Mhm.
that. Like I'm totally
Absolutely.
okay with that. But stat for you, first time the Patriots have been 0-2 since 2001.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
Like if someone was born in 2001, they've already gone to high school and college.
I
Like,
know. I
that's
know.
insane.
I graduated
That's
high school in
insane,
2001
dude.
and they haven't been 0-2 since the start of that season, which was when Tom Brady came in and the rest, as they say, is history. Okay. So two more teams that are 0-2.
Wow.
One of them is obvious, the other one is just hilarious. So the Vikings. The Vikings have zero business being 0-2 because Kirk Cousins, I saw a stat today that he is on pace to throw for 6,000 yards and like 50 touchdowns, and they're 0-2. And so this team with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson has no business being this bad. But I think the question needs to be asked in an NFC that has some top tier talent, in a division that may have a little bit more talent than we thought with Jordan Love and the Detroit Lions being a little bit better. Is it time to think about blowing this up and getting rid of Cousins for something and getting rid of Jefferson for something? Because I'm going to tell you what, right now, he's not going to be putting up 175 yards and 2 touchdowns a game to be 0-5 or 2-7 or whatever. Like he's going to want to win and he's going to want to go somewhere. They may need to be proactive about this and be realistic in the fact that I don't think that this core has it anymore. What do you think?
Same thing. I know like we try to give opposite views on things, but
No.
Jefferson wasted talent again. I don't know what's going on. Kurt is. I think you said it best a couple of seasons ago, or it might have been last season, that he is prime time. And the minute that he's in daylight, he's like a vampire in the sun getting burnt.
That ain't
But
my take. That's just reality. Like, that is just the facts of his record and the way that he plays. You called him Blade. I think that is perfect because he is weirdly like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But the thing is, Cleve, is like Justin Jefferson is not necessarily being wasted because he's putting up monster numbers. Like, this guy is one of the most talented receivers in the league since Randy Moss. I'm comfortable saying that. He's amazing. But he's being wasted in terms of the fact that
mm,
a team that has him should be winning a goddamn Super Bowl.
yeah, yeah. I think I gave you guys a little tidbit the other day that he's 24 years old and he has more receiving yards than the entire Bears franchise. Like that's insane.
I don't even
And
think I
he's 24, so he's got another 5 years.
Yeah, he's got quite a bit
Oh
of
man,
time on his prime. I mean, he's probably not even fully reached it yet, but I think Kirk Cousins could be an interesting trade piece. Like, if that team by the trade deadline has like one, maybe two wins, there are teams, the New York Jets, who could use a very competent quarterback. Now, if you take Kirk Cousins
absolutely.
and put him on the New York Jets, instantly back to being a Super Bowl contender, depending on where they are record wise. Like, if Zach Wilson can keep that team hovering near 500, Kirk Cousins could actually do some good on that team. I really do believe that. They'd have to give up a lot to get him, but that's kind of where you are. This team is in win now mode, so you make the move to get him. But Justin Jefferson, though, like, I think they want to sign him. I just don't think they're reading the room correctly. When you watch how poor this team has played in terms of losing, he's not going to stand for that. Like, no high talent player in the NFL anymore is going to stand and do the Barry Sanders thing and just be on losing teams and retire early. They want to friggin' win, and they're going to ask to get traded, and it's going to happen. And I just wonder if it's time to think about that earlier rather than later and say we had some of his best years and let's see what because they can get a haul for both of those guys and reset in the draft. That's, I think, what they have to do.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. Why the Barry thing? Like, why stay on teams that aren't going anywhere when you're like, hey, I want a Super Bowl. This is why I came to the NFL. Why I this is my dream.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
weird. They're weird too. It's weird. And
I mean, look, God
yeah,
bless
and
Barry
and
Sanders for
as a
playing
Jets
there.
fan, I'd gladly take her Cousins.
Oh, yeah, you would. I mean, even if, see, the thing is like you take Kirk Cousins knowing what you're getting, right? Like, okay, he's going to have to win a primetime game, but that's better than what you're currently trotting out there on the field at quarterback. Like, it gives you more hope. That's the whole reason why you traded for Aaron Rodgers in the first place. You're like, all right, we got a 40-year-old quarterback, but this is better than any quarterback we've ever put out there. Like, his worst season, I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers, is better than the best season any Jets quarterback has ever had. Think about that for a minute. His worst season is better than anything.
Oh,
It's crazy.
other other than Namath because Namath got a chip out of
Yes,
it. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
it's
You're
insane.
absolutely right.
And so the last 0-2 team, which you already mentioned, is the Chicago Bears. And I'm almost triggered by the Bears because the Bears are a classic organization. They're one of the oldest franchises. They have some of the greatest uniforms. Everything about the Bears should be better. And they draft Justin Fields. A lot of people were very high on Justin Fields. You and I both are very low in terms of Ohio State quarterbacks. And so far, I think it's safe to say that Justin Fields has been a disaster. And I think up until a couple of hours before we recorded this, I was willing to say, but let's give him some time. I don't know how you feel about the comments that he made publicly about the coaching. And we both just talked about how coaching does matter. But I think, though, that he's not assessing himself correctly when he's doing this and talking about the coaches because it is a mixture of both. You can overcome bad coaching if you know things not to do. Like, Justin Fields knows how to play quarterback in the league, I believe. And so I don't think he needs a coach to make him the best that he can possibly be. I think that he has that in him. And to me, it feels very disappointing for him to say that, but also on the other side of that, knowing that he has not had real competent coaching in terms of game planning, offensive line play. And so I can understand his frustration, but this is a team that's going nowhere this year. I think they might even be thinking about moving on from Justin Fields, which is kind of insane because we've seen flashes and that flash should turn into something, but it's just not there, man. It's just not. And he's the guy who in a comedy movie, when something bad happens and he tries to fix it, like plugging a hole in a ship, a whole bunch of other holes with water come out. And he's trying to plug all the holes at once and he just can't do it. And I think that's a fair assessment of the way that he has looked. It's not great, and I'm not a huge fan of him taking a dump all over the coaches when he's not taking any accountability for himself, in my opinion.
You're being far too kind, and I'm going to be a little harsher about the
Please
Justin Fields because
do it.
I wasn't. So here's the thing, right? Some people, um, some athletes, their game can transcend coaching. Their games can, with the raw talent, like a la Michael Vick, right? Michael Vick admittedly said that he didn't really watch a lot of film. A lot of it was ad lib stuff. He kept it really basic out there, and he had the freedom within the offense to kind of make something happen because he was such a dynamic talent. And again, generational talent at his skill set. I don't think Justin Fields is a NFL quarterback, and I'm not saying that because we talked about this earlier about it's easy to armchair quarterback after the fact or say how easy or hard their job is. I don't think from watching Stroud this past weekend and Richardson this past weekend and Zach Wilson not doing anything, even Jordan Love, who's been in the league for a while, but technically this is like his rookie
Yeah,
season. That's flash. Flash is what you saw in Stroud throwing up 386 yards or whatever it was. That's flash. When I see Justin Fields, I don't think he can't process quick enough what's going on the field, right? Whether the play is simplified, whatever, he's just not seeing it. He's not catching up. He's not getting it, right? Some quarterbacks can come out of college and just go, a la Herbert. Herbert came out, and I think we've all said it on political football his rookie year. This kid comes out in the game that Tyrod gets his lungs punctured and like plays like he's been playing forever. So yeah, I don't think I'm again, I'm no one to make a comment about someone's athletic ability. I just don't think he's processing and he's playing the position, and I think it is time to move on from him. That draft class is now showing really like wow how you guys always say, you and Dave always say, a quarterback can set back an organization a couple of years.
100%. And if you think about it, Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones could be the two best quarterbacks coming out of that draft class. And that's saying a lot because Trevor Lawrence is far and away better than all the other guys. So for Mac Jones to be two when everybody thought he was the worst prospect at the time says something about that quarterback class. And honestly, it says something about draft analysis and scouting. It's not a perfect science, and they don't even know what they're doing. Even these guys who do scouting don't know, because I know you gave Scott a lot of crap because of what he said about Zach Wilson as a prospect, but that just shows you like we don't really know anything. And so we're just all making guesses out there. But I think, the Bears are in trouble and Zach Wilson's in trouble and Scott's in trouble.
You know what you see. We all witnessed Peyton Manning's rookie season where he threw like 15 picks or whatever it was. I can't remember
Almost
how
30.
bad it was. But again, yeah, almost yeah, almost third. So like, but then he turned into a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like because he had it in him, right? There's flashes or whatever. It's in him. I just don't think every once in a while you get a guy that looks the part. And this is what a lot of people get caught up in, looks the part, but it's also here, right? Processing what's going on and seeing that, and the coaching again. I mean, you dump on the coaches like it's kind of bush league to me. Just kind of you're the quarterback. Take the blame in the defeats. Take the praise in the victories.
100%. So let's move on to the 2-0 teams because we've talked about crap enough. So when I look at these 2-0 teams, believe it or not, man, there are 9 2-0 teams in the league right now. And when I look at all of these
Yeah.
teams, I circle 4 or 5 as maybe being for real. So let's go over the ones that I think are probably for real. I think the Dolphins are for real as long as Tua stays healthy, of course. And what I said the other day when talking to some people
Yep.
was what worries me about Tua, because you could say that about every team. Well, if the quarterback stays healthy, but his injury in particular could set the organization back, because if he gets another concussion, that may be the end of his career, and that sets the Dolphins back a decade perhaps, and they've already been set back enough. But I think that if everything rolls right for the Dolphins, they're a Super Bowl contender. I think Tua looks really good right now. He looks comfortable in the offense. And in year 2 under Mike McDaniel, I think that they do look good. But I know you're not big on Tua because of all the injury history. But I think if he's healthy, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and a lot of teams would kill to have him.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always give him crap. I don't necessarily dislike him as a person. I think he's great, but I am. It's like the Floyd Mayweather thing. I didn't get to appreciate the greatness until I watched like what I'm watching, and I'm like, wow, he's suited for that offense. It's designed around him. He delivers a really good ball. He's pretty accurate, as Dave always clamors. I'm like, wow, this guy's putting the ball. to Waddle and Hill like where it needs to be. It's definitely something to behold. And like you said, I hope he has a great season. I hope he stays healthy. Concussions are a part of the game, and let's just hope he doesn't have another catastrophic one that we see.
I totally
You know,
agree. And so a team that I think is in the same exact boat as the Ravens, I think that they're talented. Lamar Jackson is obviously talented, but they're a Lamar Jackson injury away from being not a non-contender, but I think obviously they lose all of their potency. So things have to go right for them. I think you and I both agree on that. And it's not even about Lamar's style of play anymore. It's just injuries seem to be happening more frequently in the NFL, and they're happening to quarterbacks. So the Ravens just have to hope that they get a fully healthy season, and I think that they will be a contender in the AFC if that's the case.
yeah. Was it last year? The injury bug hit them hard,
Yes,
right?
very
Was
hard.
it last year
Very hard. And they already
or the
have
season before that?
Dobbins
Yeah,
is out for the
yeah, they
season
got
as
hit
well.
hard.
So,
Yeah,
and OBJ was out for the second half, I think,
correct.
of the Bengals game. So injuries are going to happen. So next team is the Cowboys. The Cowboys are one of those teams that I just can't trust because they haven't been able to win a big game in a very long time. But through 2 games, their defense is definitely on point and their offense seems to be putting up points. But again, it remains to be seen as we get later into the season. The Cowboys, as an organization, kind of in that Chargers mode where it seems like they can never win these games that they have to win. And that's what I'm going to be looking to see. But we're not going to see that until the playoffs because unless something catastrophic happens, this is a guaranteed playoff team, in my opinion.
You know my motto, my catchphrase during the playoffs. So they're that team. I need to see it then. Talk to me in like week 8 or 9.
I agree. The other team that's in the NFC East is the Eagles, who are 2-0. But I'm not going to lie, man. I haven't been super impressed with the Eagles. I think that last year they caught a lot of teams off guard. They had a softer schedule. I'm not going to call it soft, but they don't seem to have that swagger that they were known for last year because I think coming into this year, they got a target on their back now, and it's going to be harder to win football games. And they're going to have to win games. They're going to get everybody's best shot. Coach said it about Notre Dame, but they do not and will not have the luxury of teams taking them for granted anymore. I think it's going to be a fine season for them, but I think that they're not going to dominate the way that they did last year because teams have more tape on them and they're going to be ready for them.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that.
And then we have the 49ers, who we both know are excellent, but I still have some questions about Brock Purdy long term throughout this season. And not because I don't think he can play quarterback. I love the story, I love him. But in this past game, he was missing some throws that he needs to get under control because they should have scored like 50 points against the Rams. And he's got a ton of weapons, but that team is going to be dangerous as long as Brock Purdy doesn't degrade himself to below his mean. I think if he plays the way he played last year, this is a Super Bowl contender.
As I said on Political Football last night, I'm not too worried about Brock right now. If this was week 9 or 10 and that happened, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Because technically this is like his rookie year as well. Like he was 6 or 7 games last year, taking over for for the injuries. But again, it's kind of like when you can't believe someone's that wide open and you just like you chuck it downfield, like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed this guy. But I'm pretty sure with the coaching over there, they're gonna go through these scenarios again where he's gonna have to, make a decision to, either tuck it and run or get it downfield. Like I think they're gonna practice these scenarios with him, and he'll be better. I'm giving him a pass for right now, but if this is happening like week 9 or 10, then yeah, they have a problem over there.
Oh, I'm going to give him a pass too. But I will say, I think he does look comfortable in the pocket. Like he looks comfortable running the offense, which is what you want to see. Last year, he looked more like a rookie, kind of like, I can't believe I'm playing in these games. And you can tell that the team respects him. And so that's the kind of thing that you want to see. Moving on to the 2-0 teams, we got the Washington Commanders. There's no way that this holds. They beat the Cardinals, who really, really stink. The Broncos, they should have probably won that game by a lot more. But I don't think the Broncos are really good. And I just think that over the course of the rest of the season, injuries start to hit, teams start to play better, the cream rise to the top. I don't see the Commanders in the fold, but it's a nice story as of right now.
I kind of do see them in the mix. Reason being, they're in a tough division this year, except for the Giants. But the enemy, that's the X factor. That's the delta in this equation. I don't think Riverboat Ron is coaching this team. I think the enemy is coaching this team,
Can't stand that guy.
and you can kind of see the difference in the two squads, the way the Chiefs are playing and the way Washington is playing. The enemy is a factor. Like he's getting the best out he can get out of Sam Howell. But I do agree that the shoe's going to drop at some point, and it's going to be a great story. But I think if they win a few games, we're looking at the next coach as the enemy being elevated and Ron's out.
Yeah, totally cool. Never seeing Riverboat Ron ever again. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons are 2-0 Offensively, they have a ton of talent, but can I just ask you one question? Why do they even have Kyle Pitts if they're just not going to use him?
We've been beating our heads against the wall with that for a season now, and then like him having was it 2 catches for 15 yards or whatever it is. It's like what
Oh, it was
you
so
know,
bad.
like it. If I'm him, I just show up on game day and just run a couple of routes, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to produce because you guys aren't using me at all.
Yeah,
Send me to the
he's
Chiefs.
gonna be on another team at some point because I mean it's just weird how Arthur Smith doesn't seem to be on the same page with what they're drafting. Like it's just really strange because it's like they have Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. Any team would kill for that kind of an offensive core, and then they're throwing Desmond Ritter out there. Who, look, no offense to that guy, he's playing his heart out. He's 2-0, but this was the big worry that I had, and I know that that division stinks, and their schedule overall isn't very good. But I still don't think that this team is some kind of contender because if they're going to have mediocre to subpar quarterback play, they're in the same boat as the Jets, in my opinion. Now, I think that Ritter should hold up better than Zach Wilson, but it's
Mm,
still not something that gives me a lot of confidence. But their weapons are there. If they just use Kyle Pitts more, my goodness, that team would
mhm.
be unstoppable. But I think their coach is just going to be very reluctant to do so for basketball reasons.
Good point.
Yeah, I just don't get it. We don't need to talk about the Saints at all because that is got to be one of the worst 2-0 teams I've ever seen. It's just abysmal to watch. Chris Olave is a great talent, but he's going to get wasted there. We're going to see him on another team. I like Derek Carr as a person. I thought he was actually a good quarterback when he was with Vegas, but I just don't see it there. And the Bucks. So I want to ask you something, man. So you're a Baker guy. And I like Baker too. I am having a lot of fun
Yeah.
watching him get this team to wins that I think organizationally they 100% do not want. But he is playing really, really well right now. And I'm happy for the guy because I hope that he plays himself into some money.
So Baker this year, and he might play himself into a bag. I do agree. The thing about Baker is that you get two Bakers. You get the one that doesn't care, and then you get the one that just plays by the seat of his pants. Um, I do give him a pass because of what happened to him in Cleveland, getting two awful coaches, and then getting jettisoned to the Rams in the middle of their season, and then not really getting a chance. But I think when he plays with an edge, he's that guy. And I have a love for Baker because he just sometimes does some things, and you're like, "Wow, this guy's nuts." But then you realize that there's flashes there, and he's pretty good. I would actually take him on the Jets, believe it or not.
Well, I think actually Baker is an interesting trade piece. I think he's more attainable than Kirk Cousins because I truly believe that the Vikings feel as if they are still in win now mode. But I think that the Bucks are looking at this and thinking we did not expect to be 2-0. And while this is fun, they might be able to trade him. If the team starts to kind of go sour, they start losing some games, but Baker is still playing well, the Jets might be able to get him for a fairly attainable price. And he's an upgrade to Zach Wilson. That's the thing. Is not much as an upgrade to Zach Wilson, but I think that Baker would be interesting. But I'm rooting for Baker. I honestly think it'd be amazing if the Bucks went like 10-7 and made the playoffs somehow, and Baker played his way to a contract with some other team
Oh
because
man,
there are teams that could use him if he's the right Baker, and I think that he's motivated to be just a quarterback now. Like he has been humbled, I think, to an extent because he didn't make it in two places after he was jettisoned from
yeah,
Cleveland. So
yeah,
you got to make it somewhere, and he's doing it with the Bucks right now. So I think it's a great, great story. And
yeah,
I think though that of all of these 2-0
yeah,
teams, we don't really believe in a lot of them except for the ones that we kind of already knew were good. Like the ones we talked about at the beginning, I think that we knew were good. But there are some stories to watch in the NFL.